Hello. Thank you all for joining us. Um, you're logging in to the King's Virtual Open House. I can see quite a few people logging in. We're going to be starting really soon. Hi, everyone. If you're just logging in, we're going to start in just a few minutes. Hello, and welcome to the King's Virtual Open House. I can see a lot of people logged in. We're going to start in just a moment or two. Give people a chance to sign in. Okay. Wonderful. Welcome to the University of King's College Virtual Open House. Thank you so much for logging in today to learn a little bit more about King's. My name is Yolana Wassersag. I'm an assistant registrar student recruitment here at King's, and I'll be here to kind of guide you through a little introduction to the university. We also have several of our students here to answer your questions. And I'll also just mention that my wonderful colleague, Ashley, is kind of in the background with her camera off. And she's available to answer your questions as well. We're going to have a lot of time for questions today. So please use the Q&A feature in Zoom to ask questions that you have, and I promise we'll try to get to as many of them as possible. It looks like we have quite a good group of people logged in, which is awesome. So I think we'll just get started. Before we begin, this is a virtual event, so there are people joining us who are logged in today from regions all across Canada, the United States, around the world. But I'm right now on the King's campus here in Halifax, which is in Mi'kma'ki. So I really want to take a moment to just acknowledge that the University of King's College is on unceded Mi'kmaq territory. And this land is subject to the peace and friendship treaties that call for the peaceful coexistence and good relationships among everyone who lives in Mi'kma'ki. And the University of King's College is also recognizing that there are really important histories, contributions, and legacies that have been made by African Nova Scotian people for over 400 years in Nova Scotia. So I would encourage you to take a minute to learn about the Indigenous communities in the parts of the world that you're joining us from. And if you get a chance to come to King's in the future or come to Halifax, you'll have lots of opportunities to learn more about the communities that surround King's and that are part of Mi'kma'ki. And I'm really curious about where people are from because, like I said, I'm here in Halifax. The Mi'kmaq name for Halifax is Jabuktuk, the Great Harbor. You can see a really beautiful picture of that harbor here. I'd love to know where people are joining us from, and I put together a little poll just to ask about that. And let's see if I can launch my poll properly. Oh, bear with me one second. Hey, Ashley, I might need to ask you to launch the poll if you're on the back end because I can't seem to. Oh, there we go. Great. So you should be able to see a poll on your screen right now. I'm just really curious about where you're joining us from today. So there's lots of options that you can put in if you're in Nova Scotia, like I am right now, if you're in another province within Atlantic Canada. I know some people signed up from Ontario or Quebec. We've got some folks joining us, I think, from the prairie provinces, so Alberta, Manitoba, or Saskatchewan. Some people who are way out on the West Coast in British Columbia. The USA, or all sorts of other international locations. So take a minute and let us know where you're joining us from today. Depending on where you are in the world, I was about to say good afternoon, but it might be good morning where you are, or good evening. So I hope this isn't at a time that's been too inconvenient for you. Okay, it looks like a lot of people had a chance to sign in, so I'll end poll there. And it seems like they've got quite a few people from all around. If you want to see the results, I'll share them with you there. So it's really, really exciting to have so many people from all over taking some time today to learn a little bit about King's. Okay. If you haven't had a chance to visit Halifax before, I would encourage you to check it out if you get a chance. Halifax is this really fun, vibrant city. It's full of students. There are a lot of universities in Halifax. King's is not the only one. There's also our partner university, Dalhousie. There's the St. Mary's University, the Nova Scotia College of Art and Design, Mount St. Vincent University, many colleges. And together, our student city is just sort of filled with students from around the world. So it's a really fun and vibrant place to live. And the King's campus is very, very close to downtown. We're a really short walk from the center of the city. So there's a lot to see and do. So if you haven't had a chance to explore, I would encourage you to. There's lots of kind of great ways to learn more about Halifax. And if you have questions about what the city's like, please do feel free to ask us. So here's a little overview of what we're planning to cover in today's webinar. First of all, if you didn't catch me introducing myself at the very beginning, I'll just introduce myself again. My name is Yolana Wassersag. I'm an assistant registrar student recruitment here at King's. And I'm online today with my colleague, Ashley Baxter, who also works in the King's Registrar's Office, and quite a few of our students who are here to answer your questions. So the first thing you'll hear today is just me describing the types of programs that we offer at King's. I'll touch on the academic programs we offer, especially the King's Foundation Year program, which is a really unique feature of our campus. Pardon me. I'm also going to take a minute to talk about our special relationship with Dalhousie University, which is another university that we're very closely associated with. Then we'll talk a little bit about admissions, scholarships that are available to you, and other types of awards. And then we'll just open it up for a big Q&A with a panel of our current students. So once again, I'd encourage you to use the Q&A feature if you have any questions, and we'll move along. Okay, let's start with some basics. This is the King's Arts and Administration building. This is actually where I'm sitting right now. My window is right on this screen on the ground floor of that beautiful stone building. So I can look out and see our beautiful little campus. King's is one of the smallest universities in this region of Canada. Our total student population is just under 950. So on this little campus, everyone knows everyone. It's a really tight-knit community. It's very easy to make friends. But we also have this wider world around us. I already mentioned Halifax as this really fun and vibrant city, but we also share a campus with our friends at Dalhousie. And I apologize about my cough today. It's a little dry in here, so I'm going to take sips of my water as I go. So here at King's, when it comes to undergraduate programs, we offer 4 different kinds of degrees: Bachelor of Arts degrees, Bachelor of Science, Bachelor of Journalism Honors Program, or BJH, and a Bachelor of Music program. And when I say bachelor's degrees, what I typically mean, that's usually a 4-year degree. Some students take 5 years to complete it. A bachelor's degree is really the kind of starting point that you would need if you wanted to go on to graduate school or professional programs like law school or medical school in the future. A bachelor's degree is a really kind of valuable type of degree you can take with you into lots of different kinds of careers. I think a Bachelor of Music degree is usually pretty self-explanatory. It's easy to understand what that is. It's a degree where you'll be studying music. Science degrees, I think, are also pretty self-explanatory. A lot of people who are interested in science degrees might be thinking about majoring in a subject like biology, chemistry, physics, marine biology. The journalism program is pretty unique at King's, and I'm going to talk about the journalism program a little bit more later in this webinar. And I also just want to take a minute to talk about Bachelor of Arts programs. Bachelor of Arts programs are kind of one of the most popular kinds of programs on our campus. And an arts degree can be really broad and flexible. So arts degrees could include subjects like English, history, political science. We have some really unique programs like law, justice, and society, gender and women's studies, Indigenous people studies, and a wide range of other options. So we'll talk a little bit more about those programs as we move through the webinar. The other thing I want to highlight is right in the middle of my screen, you can see it says FYP. So that doesn't stand for you page. It stands for Foundation Year Program. Foundation Year Program is a flagship program at King's. It's something that we're really well known for. And we usually say FIP for short when we're talking about the Foundation Year Program. So if you hear me say FIP, that's what I'm describing. Foundation Year Program, or FIP, is a pretty special program because it allows any of our students to start with the same first year. And I really want to get across how special and unique that is. That's not something that happens at every university. It's not a normal or typical thing that you could go to university and you'd find that a student who's getting an arts degree because they want to major in political science and then go to law school, or a student who's doing a science degree because they love physics, or a student who wants to be a journalist, or a student who wants to play the trombone, that all 4 of those students would be in the same first year program or even get to know each other in first year. But on the King's campus, because so many of our students do their first year together, we have this opportunity for students with all sorts of different academic backgrounds to get to know each other in first year. So most students at King's will do the foundation year program in their first year. Not every student at King's does FIP, but the vast majority of our students do. So we always take a little bit of time in webinars or program info sessions to describe the foundation year program, because it might be exactly right for you and exactly what you're looking for. So I want to take some time to describe it properly. So the foundation year program is a really special and different approach to first year. I've got this chart on my slide that I'll help explain. Foundation year is different from a standard first year at university. So if you can take a look at my slide where it says standard first year, you'll notice that there are 10 little black circles. Each one of those black circles represents a class that you'd be taking. So if you are a full-time student, you'd normally be taking 5 classes in your first semester and 5 classes in your second semester. So that's 10 separate classes during the year. And you could imagine a scenario where each one of those classes is taught in a different building on the campus, is led by a different professor or instructor, and each one of those classes has a different group of students in it, and different deadlines for assignments or exams or tests. In the foundation year program approach, we do it in a totally different way. So instead of having our students take 5 separate classes, the foundation year program, or FIP, actually bundles together several of the classes you'd be taking in your first year into one integrated program. For students who are doing the Bachelor of Arts, the Bachelor of Journalism, or the Bachelor of Music, foundation year program actually makes up 4 days of your week, and it is worth the same as doing 4 separate classes, but it's one integrated program. So for these students, they're attending class together 4 days a week, and they have room in their schedule for one additional thing that they can take alongside the foundation year program that's going to be based on their interests. So for example, if you're doing the foundation year program and you're also planning to get a journalism degree, you'd be doing foundation year program FIP 4 days a week, and you'll also have room in your schedule for the introductory class for our journalism program, which is called Foundations of Journalism. So FIP 4 days a week plus your journalism class, that gives you everything you need in first year to move smoothly into the second year of a journalism degree. The same is true if you're doing a music degree. So it's foundation year program 4 days a week, plus an additional class that you're choosing that you're taking in the music department. And if you're a student doing an arts degree, then your degree is really flexible. You're doing FIP 4 days a week, and you have room in your schedule for one additional class alongside. For our science students, it's almost exactly the same. There's just a minor tweak, which is that science students don't come to FIP on Thursdays. So instead of spending 4 days a week in the foundation year program, science students are there for 3 days a week. And that leaves room in their schedule for a first year level science class and a first year level math class. So no matter which way you're doing your degree, what kind of degree you're doing, whether it's a Bachelor of Arts, Science, Journalism, or Music, foundation year program can fit into your first year, and then you can move smoothly into the second year of your chosen degree path. And we'll talk a little bit more about how that looks as we move through this webinar. So the structure of foundation year, the fact that it kind of integrates your week, that you're not doing a bunch of different classes, that's a really special structure. But the other thing that's really important about foundation year is the content. What are we actually learning when we're in the classroom together 3 or 4 days a week for most of our first year? And the answer to that question, what are we learning, is we're learning about books. This is a program that's really built around books and ideas. In the foundation year program, our students are spending time reading great and influential works of literature, history, philosophy, social sciences, and they're really thinking about how these authors and books and ideas have shaped society and continue to have an influence in our world. So what you have on the slide right here is a selection of some of the texts and ideas that are explored in the foundation year program. It's not a complete reading list. It's just to give you a kind of sense of the program. And you'll notice, I'm sure you're noticing some authors or writers or thinkers whose names are very familiar to you. Maybe you're noticing a few that you've never heard of before. You might be noticing that some of these people are novelists, some are playwrights, some are poets, some are philosophers. So this is truly an interdisciplinary program. We're really thinking across a wide range of ideas. And another important feature of this reading list is that it's organized in chronological order or historical order. So it starts in the ancient world with some of the earliest stories that were ever written down. And then we travel through time. We travel through history together. So we're moving from the ancient world through the Middle Ages, then into the Renaissance. That was my personal favorite section of the program when I did foundation year. And then we travel through the Age of Reason or the Enlightenment period, the era of revolutions. And finally, we're arriving in the contemporary world or the present day. So we're really thinking about how these ideas have shaped where we are now and how we got to this moment in time. If you are someone who enjoys reading and you're curious and you like books and ideas, then the foundation year program might just be perfect for you. And if you're listening to this webinar right now, then you're definitely in the right place if that describes you. And if you're someone who's just curious and wants to be challenged, if you want to build skills as a reader, a writer, a critical thinker, the foundation year program can help you get there. This program is taught in this really special and supportive way where our students are learning the same things at the same time. So we can always be bouncing ideas off of each other and talking about what we're learning. And you always have someone to turn to when you have questions or you need a little bit of academic support. So the foundation year program is really designed with a lot of care and kind of students first in the way that we organize ideas. I have a couple pictures here of students in that first year program learning together. So on this slide, you can see students in our lecture hall. So in the foundation year program, our students are all together in a lecture hall in the morning on their FIP days of the week. And when they're in the lecture, there's going to be a different person who is lecturing each day, someone who is an expert on the book or idea that they're exploring that week. So there's a lot of variety in the lecture hall. You're not stuck with the same professor forever. You're kind of hearing from different experts that are going to talk to you about the books that you've been reading. And everyone, like I said, is together in the lecture hall in the morning. But the real heart of the program is what happens in the afternoons, because in the afternoons, we break up our students. Instead of all being in one big lecture hall, we're in these small discussion group classes, which we call tutorials. And you can see images of tutorials here. Tutorials are capped at a maximum of 15 students. So you really have time in tutorial to discuss, to debate, to hone your ideas, to respectfully disagree with other people. And there's going to be a professor there to guide you and walk you through it as you're reading these interesting and exciting and engaging books. The tutorial, I think, is kind of the most important and specialist part of the foundation year program. It's really where our students develop lots of skills as readers and writers and critical thinkers. So I mentioned earlier, I did the foundation year program several years ago, but also along with me during this webinar, I also have some current students that I'll introduce you to soon, and a lot of them did the foundation year program as well. So if you have questions about FIP and what it's like, I encourage you to ask us about that. You're more than welcome to, and we're always happy to talk about it. I want to talk a little bit about what happens after this special first year program. While a lot of students will do FIP, the foundation year program, in first year, once they get into second, third, fourth year of their degree, that's when our students really start taking advantage of the fact that King's and Dalhousie have this shared world that we offer. King's and our partner university, Dal, are side by side, and we share a wide range of programs. So as you move into the later parts of your degree, you're really getting the best of both worlds as you explore both campuses. And this is actually a pretty special year for King's and Dal. It's the 100th anniversary of our partnership with each other. So the King's and Dal campuses have been side by side in Halifax for 100 years as of 2023, and we're really proud of that partnership. Together, our two universities share our entire Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences, our entire Faculty of Science, and our School of Performing Arts, which is where the theater and music programs live. So when I say we share those programs, what I mean is that if you are a King student, you can stroll next door to Dal and you can take any class any program that you want to that's within the worlds of arts and social sciences, performing arts, or science. I can't stress enough how special and important that is, especially for science students. Dalhousie University has an incredible reputation for science. They are one of the top 15 research universities in Canada. They have a great reputation for things like marine biology and ocean sciences, because where we're located in Canada, we're right on the coast on the Atlantic Ocean. So we have a lot of students doing that kind of learning in a really hands-on environment. Dal also has a great reputation for environmental sciences, and some really, really unique programs as well. And we're a tiny little school. Like I said earlier in this webinar, we have about 950 students. Our friends at Dal are a significantly larger institution, and they're able to offer a wide range of resources that King's would not be able to offer if we were just going it alone. So by having that partnership with Dal, we're able to give students a lot more choice in the types of academic programs they have access to. And then we also share a lot of different resources. Students can walk on over to Dal and make use of great resources like their Health and Wellness Center, their Accessibility Center. Over at the King's campus, we have our own beautiful little gym. And then there's a Dalplex Fitness Center, which has an Olympic-sized swimming pool and a rock climbing wall that our students can access. The International Student Center is a really great resource. The Black Student Advising Center, Indigenous Student Center, the LGBTQ2SIA plus collective, collaborative. All of those resources are available on both campuses. And it works both ways. Dal students can stroll on over to King's and take classes on our campus as well. But the King's Foundation Year program that I was talking about before, we just keep that for ourselves. We don't share that with Dal, so only King's students can do the Foundation Year program. I'll just take a minute to highlight that my colleague Ashley has been dropping into the webinar chat some useful links that you can take a look at and explore if you want to see more. So if you take a look at the chat feature, you'll notice that Ashley just shared a link to where you can see a full list of programs that we offer. So I would encourage you to check those out, and you'll see them pop up in the chat. And Ashley, you might want to just share that link again. I just changed the chat so that everyone can see it and not just the panelists. So, and this slide is also really helpful. So there's a kind of wide range of programs you can offer. This is not a comprehensive list, so there's even more than what you can see here, but you can really mix and match between these programs. So you'll notice that a few programs here, journalism, the history of science and technology, the contemporary studies program, and the early modern studies program, those programs are in blue font and they're in bold. They've got a little K next to them. Those programs are all taught on the King's campus and are kind of special programs that are part of the King's landscape. The other programs that you see listed here are part of the shared world of King's and Dal. And so our students are going to be walking next door to Dalhousie to take classes through those programs on Dalhousie's campus. I think one of the most common questions that students get when they're in high school and they're thinking about where they might want to go to university is that people in their life will say, oh, what's your major going to be? What do you plan to major in? And I would really encourage you to break out of the mindset where you have to have just one major, or you need to know exactly what the one thing that you're most passionate about is. It's not true that you need to know right now while you're in high school what your one thing is going to be. You have time to figure it out. And doing a program like Foundation Year and First Year can introduce you to a wide range of different ideas to help you decide what might be the best major for you. But I also want to encourage you to keep in mind that you don't need to have just one major. In fact, it's really common for King students to be passionate about more than one thing. So you may find that it suits you better to have a double major or a combined honors degree or a major and a minor where you're exploring multiple different subjects. And if you're someone who likes art subjects and science subjects, and you want to mix and match between those categories, you absolutely can. So, the degree that's perfect for you might be a really unique combination. It could be something like a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Science with a minor in philosophy, for example, and maybe a certificate in art history, right? So you can mix and match in any different way that feels right to you. And the academic advisors that we have here at King's can really help guide you through those decisions and help you figure out how to map out a degree that meets your goals. Pardon me. I just want to take a minute here to talk about the journalism program. Journalism is something we're really well known for at King's. We're widely regarded as one of the best journalism schools in Canada. And there are a couple features of our journalism program that really make it special. So I always like to highlight those. Journalism is a really practical and hands-on program. Our students will spend time, especially in their fourth year, doing these workshops where they're really delving in and learning skills by doing them. So for example, if you're in the audio workshop, you're spending time actually making your radio show or your podcast and putting it out into the world for people to enjoy. Every student in our fourth year of our journalism student gets an internship. So everyone graduates with real world work experience. And you can see on this slide just a few of the news outlets and media organizations and magazines where some of our students have had internships in the past. Places like the Globe and Mail, Elle Magazine, CBC, TSN, and there are so many more. Our faculty in the journalism program are all professional working journalists. They have a great network. They can help match you up with an internship opportunity that's right for you. And the other thing that you'll notice on my slide is where it says The Signal. The Signal is the in-house news website for our journalism students. So if our journalism students are working on a story that is good enough to be published, then we publish it and it goes out into the world and people can read it. It's a real news website. And you can see The Signal by going to signalhfx.ca. Maybe Ashley will share the link to that in the chat as well. Oh, she already has. The Signal is awesome. And if you take a look at that site, if you're someone who's interested in the journalism program, it'll really give you a sense of exactly what kinds of things our journalism students are working on right now. So it'll really give you a taste of what that program is all about. Okay, flying through. I want to take a minute to talk about some of the key dates that you might want to be aware of if you're thinking of applying to King's. So let's start with October 15th, which is behind us. The day that we're recording this webinar right now, it's December 3rd, and I'm going to be sharing a video of this recording down the line, so you might be watching this at different times of year. October 15th is when we open admissions. So if you are interested in applying right away, you can. Admissions are open now. And our applications for residence are open now as well. March 1st is a really important deadline to be aware of. March 1st is the deadline to be considered for general entrance scholarships. And it's also the deadline to submit your application for major awards. So I'm going to talk in just a few minutes about how scholarships and awards work at King's, so you can keep in mind that important March 1 deadline. After March, we start sending out scholarship offers to students as they apply. Some of the folks who are watching this webinar right now are international students. An important date for you to be aware of if you're an international student is April 1st. So that is your final deadline to apply. For Canadian students, you have a little bit longer, but I would encourage everyone to consider applying before March 1st, because like I said, March 1st is the scholarship deadline and you don't want to leave money on the table. May 15th is another important deadline. May 15th is your deadline to kind of accept your offer of admission. So if you've been admitted to King's and you're making up your mind that you'd like to attend, then by May 15th, we need to receive an admission deposit from you. And another important reason that May 15th is a really critical date to remember is that as long as you've applied to residence before May 15th, then there is a guaranteed bed for you in our residences. So we really want to make sure that you get a space in residence if that's something that's important to you. Be sure to apply to residence before May 15th if that's something that you're looking for. As we get into the summer, June is when registration opens. So that's when new incoming students will actually start picking their classes. And before June, you'll notice that our academic advisors will be sending you helpful emails and videos and information about how to register classes and how to pick classes. And you can also book an appointment either in person or virtually with an academic advisor to help guide you through that process. In late June, we'll post the Foundation Year Program reading list. We'll ask you to update us with your final high school grades, and we'll send out residence room assignments. And then everything kicks off in September with Orientation Week. Orientation Week at King's is a really, really fun time. Our Orientation Week is entirely run by students. So it's a really exciting event and a great way to get to know the campus. So if you have any questions about that timeline, please feel free to ask or reach out. I'll just highlight that the best way to get in touch with us with any questions about the application process is to email admissions@ukings.ca. That email address, admissions@ukings.ca, will put you in touch with an admissions expert on our campus, like Ashley or our colleague Tara or myself, and we can guide you through the process. Moving on, I promised I would talk a little bit about scholarships, and I meant it. I'll share a little bit of information about how scholarships work at King's. So on the top of my slide here, I have some information about what we call our General Entrance Awards. General Entrance Awards are really straightforward. They're very easy. You don't have to fill out a separate application at all. You will be automatically considered for a General Entrance Award, provided that you've applied to King's before March 1st. And if your average, your admission average, is an 85% or higher, those awards are guaranteed and they will start at $2,000. And they're also renewable. Renewable means that we'll continue to give you the scholarship every year, provided that you're maintaining your academic standard. And you can see that those General Entrance Awards start at $2,000 and go up to $3,500. So as long as you apply before March 1st, you'll be considered for one of these awards. Lower down on the slide, you can see where it says major awards. The major awards are larger scholarships. And for those awards, there is a separate application form that you need to fill out. And again, the deadline is March 1st. For these major awards, there are different sets of criteria for which students are eligible. So some of these awards are open to any student across Canada. Some of them are also open to international students. Some of them are specifically for students that are also varsity athletes, like the Deborah Dean Little and Robert Little Academic Scholarships for Varsity Athletes. Some of these awards are specifically for Black or Indigenous students, such as the Dr. Carrie Best Scholarship. Some of them are specifically for African Nova Scotian students, like the Gordon Earl Scholarship. You'll see a wide range of different types of awards. And if you want to read detailed information about all of these awards, exactly who is eligible, lots of details about how to apply, I'd encourage you to visit our scholarships website to take a closer look. I also want to highlight that along with this webinar today, we have other webinars coming up in early February, where we're going to talk about the scholarship application process in depth and also talk about financial aid. So you'll be getting more information from us about how you can sign up for those events if you really want to dig in and get a lot more detailed information about scholarships and about financial aid in general. Okay. What happens after our students leave King's? King's is this really warm and supportive environment. Like I said, we're a small university. People tend to get to know each other. And after they leave, our students enter the world and do incredible and exciting and influential things. Lots of our students end up working in education. We do a great job preparing people for careers in education. So when I say careers in education, I mean education at all levels. People from kindergarten teachers to university professors, people who are working in the education sector in all sorts of different ways. We also have a lot of people that go into fields like government and public service. So people who are interested in politics, law, working in nonprofit organizations, helping to create policy that governments will use. A lot of our graduates end up in that area. Unsurprisingly, we have a lot of graduates who work in the world of journalism or communications because we are really well known for being a journalism school. We have a lot of students that will go into careers like law as well. The foundation year program in particular is really great preparation for law school because it's a program that's designed to help you build skills as a reader, writer, and critical thinker. If you're curious about where our students end up or where this degree can take you, I'd encourage you to visit ukingscommunity.ca. It's a really helpful website that allows you to browse profiles of our graduates and see where they are now. And it's kind of a neat site because you can filter the profiles either by the type of degree they got or by the type of career they have. So if you want to, for example, just take a look at people who did a Bachelor of Science degree and see where they are now, you can do that. Or if you want to sort by career, right? If you want to see everyone who now works in environment and sustainability related fields, for example, you can do that. And kind of read stories about who those people are, how they got to where they are. If you want to get put in touch with an alumni who works in a different kind of career, our alumni representatives can help you do that. So you can kind of develop new connections and partnerships that might help you explore different career paths that are available to you. And I did mention earlier that law is an area that a lot of our students are interested in. There is a really neat partnership between King's and the law school at the University of Calgary, where students who have done the foundation year program are provisionally pre-admitted to the Calgary Faculty of Law. And there are some special scholarships available from that law school that are specifically for King's students. So if that's a pathway that you're interested in, if law might be part of your future, King's can really help you get there in some concrete ways. And that's something that we're particularly proud of. Okay, so I've been talking for a long time and I'd really like to open it up to some other voices at this time. So I'm going to ask our student panelists to join us. Before we open it up to our student panel, you can start kind of putting questions that you have into the Q&A feature if you want. And you can really ask us anything. You might have questions about athletics, intramural sports, jobs on campus, student employment, different kinds of societies, clubs, student groups. If you have questions about study abroad or exchange programs, if you want to know about what our residences are like, what the meal hall is like, what it's like to live on campus, we can definitely answer those questions, unique King's traditions, or really anything else that you can think of. I'd encourage you to use the Q&A feature to explore those options. And I want to introduce you to our student panelists. So I'm going to ask them to kind of turn on their video at this time if they haven't. Joining me today are Daniel, Jenna, Sadie, Nora, and Clara. And I'm going to give them all a chance to introduce themselves. So I think the easiest way for me to do that is to stop sharing my PowerPoint so that we're all a little bit easier to see. Great. Oh. Awesome. Hi, everyone. Why don't we take a minute to introduce ourselves? I'm going to just call you out based on the order that I'm seeing on my screen. So Daniel, you're up first. Why don't you take a minute to say who you are and what you're studying?
For sure. Hey, everyone. I'm Daniel. My pronouns are he, him. I am a third-year student from Illinois, which is in the United States, doing a combined honors in contemporary studies and social anthropology.
Awesome. Nora, can I throw it to you?
My name is Nora. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm from Ottawa, and I'm majoring in international development studies.
Clara?
Hi, my name is Clara. I'm studying contemporary studies and international development, and I use she, her pronouns, and I'm from Chelsea, Quebec.
Sadie?
Hi, my name is Sadie. I use she, her pronouns. I'm in my 4th year of a combined honors in King's History of Science and Technology program and Dal's Theater Studies program, and I'm from Vancouver.
Awesome. And Jenna?
Hi, I'm Jenna. I use she, her pronouns. I'm in the journalism program and I'm in 2nd year.
Awesome. So thank you all for being here today. I'm going to wait and see what kind of questions come up in our Q&A today from folks that they might be curious about. And don't be shy. There are no silly questions. You can ask us anything that you're curious about. Oh, I think probably people are waiting to type them. Okay, so this is a really admissions focused question that's come in. So I think I'll take this one, which is just if I'm planning to take a gap year, should I apply this year and then defer, or should I wait until next year to apply? This is a great question. I get this one a lot. The short answer is it's totally up to you. The longer answer is it might benefit you to apply this year and then defer your offer of admission. Here's why. I know this sounds silly, but if you apply this year, presumably you're in your senior year, your grade 12 year of high school right now. So other people around you are also working on university applications. You might have people around you at your school that can help support you if you're working on a university application. If you wait until you're in your gap year, you might spend time in your gap year doing things like traveling or volunteering or working. It might be harder to find time to apply. I know this sounds crazy, but I once had a student who waited until their gap year to apply, and then they spent their gap year volunteering in an area where they did not have reliable Wi-Fi, and it was really hard for them to fill out the online application. So I usually recommend apply while you're in your grade 12 year, just to make your life a little easier. Okay. Another question is, hi, I'm curious, if I choose a major at Dal, will all my classes be at Dal after my first year? Okay, I'm going to throw this to one of our student panelists, a lot of whom are taking many classes on the Dalhousie campus. Yeah, I can see Sadie. Would you like to speak to this?
Sure, yeah. So it's true that many students who end up in programs at Dal will take all of their classes at Dal in their upper years. I want to say that doesn't mean you can't remain a part of the King's community through things like clubs and societies and just being part of the social life at King's. And regardless if you do FIP and take classes at Dal, you will end up with both schools on your diploma at the end. But we also see some students taking electives at King's in some of our programs, even if they aren't part of those King's programs. Once again, those 3 King's upper year programs are Early Modern Studies, Contemporary Studies, and History of Science and Technology, as well as journalism. And those programs have many electives that are open to students from Dalhousie and King's from any program. Science fiction and film is a really common one that people take as an elective. The Pirate and Piracy is an Early Modern Studies course. There are journalism classes and things like audio and video production, creative nonfiction. So there are options to take electives at King's, even if you aren't in one of those specific King's programs.
Awesome. Thank you, Sadie. Okay, there's another question here about what intramural sports are available at King's/Dalhousie, because King's and Dal actually share our intramural programs. Yeah. Nora, you're a varsity sport athlete. I don't know if you do any intramurals. Is this something you want to speak to?
Yeah, I haven't participated in intramurals myself, but all intramural sports teams at Dal are available to King students. They have a very broad range of intramural sports, so any of your classics like basketball, volleyball, soccer, hockey, etc., but also some like weirder ones. There's like some water sports. I think there's like kayak polo or something in the pool. So really anything that you want is probably there. And the other cool thing is that any student can create their own intramural team to participate into a Dal intramural league. So I know last year I was in FIP and a bunch of FIP students got together to create a King soccer intramural team called Dante's Inferno. And it was a great time. It was all King students and they had, the themed name and they ended up doing really well. And then there are also varsity sports at King's that you can take a look at if you're interested in playing more competitively.
Ashley, I'm going to just ask you to take a minute and you can share the link in the chat to the Dal intramurals page just so people can see a full list. Oh, thank you. You read my mind and we're doing it already. And Jenna, it seems like you have something you want to add, so I'll throw it to you.
Yeah, I can't really say anything better than what Nora just said because she pretty much summed up everything. But I was on the aforementioned Dante's Inferno team, and it was incredibly fun. We always dubbed ourselves as King's best and only competitive soccer team. And we did do really well, and it was fun, and it was a great way to kind of let off steam after turning in papers because games always fell on the same day that we had to turn in a FIP paper. So you were just kind of able to go and run around with your friends and just kind of celebrate the end of turning in a massive paper. And it's free and it's really fun. And I would encourage everybody to participate.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that, Jenna. So another question we have on our list here is, actually, I think, Jenna, this one's for you too. It's what would the typical week look like for a journalism undergraduate student? And since you're in the journalism program, I was wondering if you could speak to that.
Yeah, for sure. So first year works a little differently than other years because of FIP. And so kind of how first year is set up is you do FIP, as Yolanda was mentioning before, 4 days a week. So Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then because King's is structured around journalism and FIP, the Tuesday is kind of set aside for journalism. And so if you're in first year journalism program, it's pretty much the same as you would have any other FIP day. You still have a lecture at 9:30. Which was about 2 hours of a thinking lecture in the morning. And then in the afternoon, you have a writing lecture for an hour, followed by a tutorial for an hour. So it's pretty similar to a typical FIP day, just with kind of an extra writing lecture in the middle there. It's also really great because it's a good kind of transition piece between high school and university where you still have like a set schedule to kind of more transition you into living on your own, but also giving you a lot more freedom. And the first year journalism program is just kind of overall an overview about journalistic writing. So first semester is really just focused on breaking down what you know about writing and building it back up into a journalistic style. And then they get you to do like a little bit of interviewing, but not really writing any major articles. I think you do one by the end of first semester. And then second semester, you take everything that you learned first semester and apply it to, you do 3 stories about anything that you want. They give you a lot of freedom to pitch your own stories. And then again, like Yolanda was mentioning earlier, you can get them published in either the Signal, which is King's publication, or the Dalhousie Gazette. And then your big thing that you work on second semester is something that we call the major feature. And that's a lot more long form article that you dedicate a lot of time to doing. You get a lot more freedom with that one. And they also teach you at the end of that semester how to pitch your article to major news organizations. So lots of people get them published in CBC or the major publications out in Halifax. For people that aren't out there is Saltwire. And so a lot of people got pieces published in Saltwire, and then others got theirs in the Dalhousie Gazette or in the Signal as well. So it's kind of first year. Second year, they know that you know what you're doing, and they definitely take it to the next level. So you currently, like, I'm in 2 classes first semester for journalism and then 1 class second semester, because there's just 3 required courses for second semester, and then the rest of your classes you just to kind of fill with classes at Dal or at King's or whatever you'd prefer. But the 2 classes that I'm in currently is Introduction to Reporting, so it's just really going into the specifics of news reporting. And then the other one is Introduction to Photojournalism, and that's teaching you how to manually shoot a camera, how to cover news and features both on film and through photos. So they teach you how to use like really, really high-tech video equipment as well. They teach you all about editing, so a lot more hands-on work there. And then second semester, we'll also have a course focusing on Indigenous reporting, which is brand new, I believe, and something that King's is really focusing on implementing more into the journalism program to tell more Indigenous stories.
Yeah, Jenna, that's such a detailed answer, and thank you so much for taking time to answer it. And I will just say, in general, the structure of the journalism program, in the foundation year program, you're spending a lot of time on kind of arts and humanities subjects, and you just have that one journalism class on Tuesdays. As you move through the degree, second year, third year, fourth year, you can actually take more and more classes that are journalism focused. And the fourth year of the program, Jenna, you're not in fourth year yet, so it would be a weird thing for you to speak to, but the fourth year is basically all journalism all the time. So it's all hands-on workshops. The internship component is a really big piece of fourth year. So that's kind of the general shape of the program. And it's also important to mention that just like any student in any program at King's, journalism students can combine other things that they're passionate about. So if you want to do journalism while also getting a double major or a combined honors or a minor in another subject that you're passionate about, you can totally do that. So I want to move on to the next question here, which is it possible to do FIP if you're hoping to do a concentrated honors in theater in the acting stream of the theater program? Okay, so Sadie and I, who are both on this call, I was, and you are currently a theater student, but neither of us were in the acting stream. We're both in the theater studies stream. Sadie, I don't know if this is something you want to speak to, or if you would feel more comfortable if I answered this one.
Yeah, I think I can try. You can add if I have any gaps. But to sum up the theater programs at Dal, there are quite a few options. The Fountain School of Performing Arts has many options, and they're all lovely people over there. So if you're interested in performing arts, I highly recommend checking it out. But there are 4 streams of theater that are open to you. So acting is one of them. Theater studies, what Yolanda and I did, is one. So that's some theater history, some writing and directing kind of stuff. There's stage design and technical theater. So that's lights, sets, audio, all that kind of stuff. And costume studies. We have only one of the few costume studies programs in Canada. So in terms of acting, it is possible, I would say, to do FIP and acting. I would say you would very likely be taking a 5th year, or at least an extra semester. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But there are quite a few required courses that might make it a little bit difficult to balance FIP and acting. Specifically, the acting program is structured very much around sort of a tight cohort that moves through the different stages of acting classes together. And by 4th year, then you're working on 2 or 3 full productions together. So I would say it is possible. It just might mean taking some extra classes, possibly in the summer. You could still finish it in 4 years if you take summer classes, or an extra semester. But it is possible to do acting in FIP, and I know people who have done that.
And I'll just add, it is absolutely possible. There's a required first year course for students that want to do the acting program. I think the course code is Theater 1800, but I might be mistaken about that. But an academic advisor can guide you through that. You can take that course alongside foundation year program. And if you are interested in the acting stream, you would typically do that course in first year. And at the end of first year, you would audition to enter the acting stream of the program. Great. Okay, so we have a question here about housing and residence and finding places to live, which is about, a person has written, I've read about the housing shortage in Halifax. So I'm going to throw this to our students to speak to, but I also just want to say about this. Halifax is a growing city. It's actually the second fastest growing city in Canada. And all of the growing cities in Canada are experiencing this kind of crunch where we are finding that the amount that the city is growing is not keeping up with the pace of development. And so if you're feeling anxious about finding housing, I fully understand that anxiety, and I'm glad that you're asking about this. It's a really reasonable question to have. I just want to reiterate, if you're a student who's going to be applying to King's coming direct from high school and you apply for residence by May 15th, we do have a guaranteed space in residence for you for sure for first year. Then as we move on to kind of second, third, fourth year, your options were either kind of looking for housing off campus or continuing to live on campus. So can I throw it to our students to kind of speak about their experiences with this? Yeah, I see Clara's hand.
So I'm in second year, and I lived in residence last year, and I'm living off campus this year, and I'm planning to continue living off campus. I'd say it's while acknowledging that we are experiencing a housing crisis, all my friends found places, I found places. It's all about just getting on it as soon as you're sure that you're staying next year, start looking for places, figure out who you're living with. And most students look through Facebook Marketplace or Kijiji to find housing, or I guess rather than just traditional renting from an apartment. If you're looking for a student house, you'd find that through Facebook Marketplace or Kijiji. And it's stressful, but I don't know anyone who it didn't end up working out for. So yeah, just my advice would be when you're staying, start looking and figure out who you're living with to kind of ease that stress and make it more manageable.
Can I maybe Daniel or Nora, or I think Daniel does still live on campus. I'd love to hear from someone who's kind of living on campus in the later years, just to kind of throw that out as one of the options as well.
For sure. And living on campus, especially as an international student, is incredibly affordable. And also there is a small little percentage to residents that is specifically allocated to upper year students. And I know that window opens very early on in the year, but if you are unsure about it, you can not only apply in that period of time, which would open, I believe, in October, midway through October of that year, but also if you're feeling unsure about any residence related questions, you can also reach out to the housing team, such as the housing administrator and housing coordinator. They'll be happy to answer any questions that you can throw their way, especially in a time like this where everything is in a big crunch, as Halifax is one of the largest growing cities in the country.
Awesome. Okay, there's another question here. This one was someone asked it in the chat rather than our Q&A, and we saw it pop up. So there's a question here about, are there jobs on campus for first year students, and is a bus pass included in tuition? Okay, the bus pass one, that one's straightforward. Yes, a bus pass including your tuition. Halifax Transit is great, and even though our campus is really close to a lot of fun things, like in walking distance or easy cycling distance, if you're someone who rides a bike, you can also get the bus all over, which is really handy on days when it's rainy. What about campus jobs? Would anyone like to speak to kind of jobs on campus and the availability of those? Yeah, Sadie, go right ahead.
Yeah, I had someone ask me this on a tour a couple days ago, so I feel like the list is fresh in my mind. Yes, there are many on-campus jobs for students, run through both the student union and the university. So the King Student Union, there are elected council positions. The executive positions, if you're interested in student government, are paid. I would say you shouldn't do those exclusively for the money. It is a huge responsibility, but I have so much respect for everybody on the KSU executive, so that's a possibility. Also, the student union administers two businesses, the Galley, which is our student-run cafe, and the Wardroom, which is our on-campus bar. So you can also work at those places. Then the university employs students in a variety of positions. There's student ambassadors and tour guides like us, and there's various other positions in the registrar's office, like people who help with academic advising, with social media, things like that. Students help with facilities staff in the dining hall. In the summer for conference services, King sort of runs as a conference center in the summer, so that's a really common summer job for students. I also work at the front desk of residence, which is a great job that's staffed by students. And then a big one that I haven't said yet is patrol, which Daniel can speak to specifically. But patrol is our friendly campus nightlife support. So we have a contracted security company like any other university, but we also have patrol who are upper year students who are trained to keep our campus safe, and they do rounds of residents at night. They help shut down the wardroom or bar in the evening, and they're there just to support students. So that's on-campus job opportunity as well. So yes, there are many, many job opportunities for students. And I would say quite a large portion of King students do have at least one job on campus. I have two. So that's
If
pretty
you want
cool.
the statistics, it's about a third. 1/3 of King students have a job on campus, which is pretty awesome, especially considering the size of our community. Okay. Okay, so we have a question here about FIP Science. So there's a question here that says, do FIP Science students feel like they're missing out on part of the program? Would you recommend going the arts route if I'm undecided on what I want to major in later on? Okay, so in this student panel, we tried to get a representative panel that included lots of different people. It was harder for us to get a science student who happened to be available at this weekend at this time, but Nora, I can see that you're.
Yeah, I did do FIP Science actually.
Of course
I'm-
you did. I knew that.
I'm no longer in the science stream because I was also undecided and I chose to go the science route actually. Because I wanted to have the possibility to explore additional classes at Dal. For me, while I do think there were things that I missed out on in FIP, and there were a couple texts where I was like, oh, I wish I read this because it links to so many other of the topics we're discussing. I found that I could always learn more about the text that I missed from talking to my peers, or even I oftentimes had space in my schedule. So if I'd wanted to, I could go to the additional lecture on Thursday if I was just interested in that topic. And for me, as someone who was really undecided about whether I wanted to go the science stream or the arts stream, and also what I wanted to do in those streams, I felt it was beneficial to do FIP Science because it allowed me to I did 4 very different classes. I took economics, sustainability, and biopolitics at King's, which are just, they weren't letting me go towards a specific program, but they let me, dip my toes in a few different areas, and that was super cool. So I would just go with your gut on choosing science or arts. I don't think there's one way that's better than the other for sure.
Yeah, Nora, thank you so much for speaking to that. And in general, I'd agree. If you're undecided between science and arts, one option that's available to you is just go with your gut. If you really are unsure and you kind of want a little bit of academic advising support, sometimes we recommend that if you're trying to decide, should I go with this program or that program, we usually recommend applying first to the one that has the kind of tighter guideline or tighter requirements for getting in. So between science and arts, it's a little bit more challenging or a little bit more rigorous the way the admission process for sciences works, because we'll also be looking at your grade in your math class as well as your grade in your English class when we assess you for admission. So if you start with a program that has more structured requirements or is a little bit more kind of structured in general, moving from science to arts can be an easier flow. Whereas if you start in arts, but then change your mind that you want to do sciences, you might need to take an additional class over the summer or something to get caught up and be ready to kind of move into the science stream. So that might be something to keep in mind. Okay, we have a question here that says, what's it like being in FIP versus a normal or standard first year in university? And I think, yeah, Clara.
I think the biggest difference from FIP to a standard first year university experience is that you're taking one mega consolidated course. So instead of taking, 5 classes a semester in your first year of university and oftentimes a new city, new environment, new expectations, I find it was a lot less overwhelming than I expected it to be, that transition from high school to university, because it was very well structured. And you're also put into like really like a huge community. You know, if you're living in residence, especially day students, I know experience this as well, but like when you live in residence at King's or just go to King's, you're going to one class all together every day. You are doing the same readings, you have like the same deadlines, you're studying for the same things, writing on the same things. And then in residence, you're all living together, eating together, doing basically everything together. So it's like I feel like there's maybe a deeper sense of community than, or like the opportunity for community than you get like a typical university. And yeah, it's also the structure is less overwhelming. And I was really grateful for that because I like coming from, across the country. University is hard, it's a transition, and having something that like, instead of taking 5 classes with different deadlines, you have one class with a consistent deadline. You don't get overwhelmed by the work as easily. It's easier to stay on top of things and figure yourself out.
Great answer. Yeah, I can't add anything to that. That's perfect. Okay, so we have a question here about what the music program is all about. And is there any kind of opportunity to learn about recording? We don't have a music student with us in this group. I can speak a little bit to my knowledge of the music program. And for the person who's asking this question, if you want to reach out and connect with us too, to kind of dig in a little bit more, we can help you with that. And I'm also going to ask my colleague Ashley to share a link in the chat to more information about music programs as well. But we were talking a little bit about the theater program before and how there's 4 different streams in the theater program. There's acting and theater studies and technical theater and costume studies. It's pretty similar in the music program where there's actually a couple of different streams that are available to you. So if you're really focused on composition, you want to write new music, there's a composition stream, there's a musicology stream, and a performance stream, and there's also a concentration in popular music. So there's a bunch of different options there. You can also concentrate on a specific instrument, especially if you're in the performance stream, you're going to be focusing in on a particular instrument. So there's a lot of opportunities to learn a wide range of different skills. Just to sort of speak in general about the music program, the Fountain School of Performing Arts, where the music and theater programs are housed, is this really like beautiful space that the building that houses the Fountain School of Performing Arts was recently renovated. There are some really beautiful state-of-the-art performance spaces that have incredible acoustics. There's some really great concert halls to perform in. And the building that those classes are taught in is also the same building where Symphony Nova Scotia performs. So a lot of the professional musicians who are members of the symphony are also instructors in the program. They're people you're like rubbing shoulders with every day and you're getting to know. So those are kind of some really special assets in the program. I will say this program tends to be kind of classical training in its focus. So even if the style of music that you like best might be more contemporary or like popular music, you'll have opportunities to learn those styles, but you're going to start with a classical foundation. So, everyone is doing some Bach and Beethoven and Mozart to kick things off at the beginning of their degree. And then as they kind of move through the program, they might be specializing in other styles of music as well. But you are going to learn some classical skills up front. It's pretty similar to how in the acting program, people start with a lot of Shakespeare before they get into more contemporary types of theater. Okay. This is a really open question, and I bet everyone will have something to say about it. What are some of the extracurriculars at King's? Somebody wrote. So let's name some extracurriculars. We've got a lot of them. Yeah, Jenna, kick us off.
So King's offers a lot of extracurriculars in and of itself, but something else to keep in mind is as a King's student, you get full access to all the extracurriculars at Dal. So really anything that you could ever imagine would even be an option as an extracurricular is available to you. King's offers some really great King specific ones, and stuff that's actually really intertwined with campus life. So something that is especially a big part of first year is there's something called Classics in the Quad. And me and Clara were both in Classics in the Quad last year in our first year. And essentially what that is you put on, usually in a Greek tragedy, on the steps of the King's Library. And it's something that you audition for, and it's just all first year, so pretty much all people in FIP, and so it's a great way to get to know other people in FIP. And you practice kind of for several months in the fall and then perform it for everybody kind of like amongst the sunset, dressed in these costumes. It's a very, very special King's tradition that I know I was grateful to be a part of, and from speaking to Clara, too. I think she also really enjoyed her time with it. That's where we became friends. So, and like really just there's so many amazing extracurriculars that Kings offers, where you'll just have a chance to form bonds with people over shared interests, you know, as extracurriculars do, but especially because Kings is so small. Like there's only two around. I think that was another question in the chat. So killing two birds with one stone, there's only about 200 people in a first year FIP class. And by the kind of end of the year, you kind of get to know who everybody is, but you really get to know them more in depthly throughout the year by doing these extracurriculars and like exploring some of your shared interests. I know some of the other things that Kings is really proud to offer is kind of like a flagship extracurriculars. We have the chapel choir, which is a really, really top-notch classical choir that performs at chapel services. And I know they also travel around and do performances elsewhere. I'm not a part of the choir, so I don't know if anybody can speak on it better than I can, but I've heard them and they're wonderful. And then other than that, I know like some of my friends are in the Dal Kings Swing Society, which is really fun. And you often see them out kind of performing they like get together and do swing dances. And other than all of the sports, which, you know, Nora was more speaking about earlier, a lot of the intramural ones are done through Dal, but the Kings extracurricular ones are more for, I believe, like you need to try out beforehand and kind of like get that going before you get into Kings. I know everybody else probably has stuff to say about extracurriculars too, so I'll pass my time off to somebody else.
Sure. I think Nora probably wants to speak to varsity sports, so I'll throw it over to Nora.
I'd like to do a quick plug for varsity sports. Kings has several varsity sports teams. We have both men's and women's basketball, men's and women's soccer, a women's volleyball team, and then men's and women's rugby teams, as well as a co-ed badminton team. They're having very successful seasons this year. Both our men's and women's soccer teams just went to nationals after the men's team won the provincial championships, or not the regional championships. So all of the Maritimes, and the women's team placed second. The women's basketball team and the women's volleyball team have only lost a game each this season, so they've been pretty much undefeated. And then the badminton team has basically won every tournament for the last 2 years. They won first at nationals last year. And if you're interested in being a part of any of these teams, you can visit the Blue Devils website, which I think Ashley just sent a link to in the chat, and contact the athletics director, Neil, who can put you in touch with any of the coaches. If you have like game footage, you can send it along and be like officially recruited even before the season starts. And if not, every team hosts open tryouts at the beginning of the year. One of the teams that's really looking for players right now and would love to hear from you is the women's rugby team. You don't necessarily need to have a ton of women's rugby experience to be part of it. So if you're interested, maybe you just want to try a new sport, transitioning from a different sport, reach out to them. They'd love to hear from you.
Amazing. I think we could probably talk about extracurriculars for hours, so I do want to move us along, but I'm going to mention just a few more that didn't get mentioned today that I think are really cool. The King's Dance Collective, that one's awesome. The Pride Society, that's great. There's a new society on campus called the D&D and Tabletop Role-Playing Game Society, personal favorite of mine. And then the other thing that I'll say is any student at King's can start any club or society that they want. The rule is it has to be inclusive. So if you're looking for kind of Greek life, there's no fraternities or sororities on the King's campus, but inclusive clubs and societies of all kinds are welcome. Okay. We're going to go to, we have about 20 minutes left and we have a lot of questions left in the chat. So I'm going to keep us moving. In the dining hall, is there a large variety of food? What is the food like? What kind of food meal plan would you recommend? Does anyone want to speak about the dining hall? Daniel.
Absolutely. I could touch on that substantially, where the chefs at Prince Hall you can easily contact at dining@ukings.ca. There is often a wide variety of meals served throughout the day. There's a breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And also when you apply for residence, you also apply for your meal plan as well, which can be 10, 14, it's actually 7, 10, 14, or unlimited meals I believe, for the entire week. So that is also included with your residency at King's. Otherwise, a lot of my friends who live off campus can come in. It's usually like about like a $13 fee to come in and have food at Prince Hall, but it's usually like a good place for people to come in and get to know each other at King's. Like even sometimes the food, even if sometimes the food isn't what you're liking for, I usually come anyways and just take in every social interaction that you can get, as it's also a great place for people to get to know one another at King's.
Yeah, go ahead, Nora.
I'd also say last year, one of the great things that the King's Meal Hall added, they introduced hot plates, so students could take stuff from like the salad bar or the fridge and cook their own meals if they were just feeling like comfort food. They wanted to make a grilled cheese or like pasta with sauce, which I thought was super awesome. And then there are also kitchens in residence where you can make your own food. But yeah, they have a lot of options.
One thing I'll also say is that there's always something available every day that's available for vegans, vegetarians, or gluten-free folks. And because we're such a small school and the dining hall staff are so nice, if you're someone with a food allergy or intolerance, you can always let the staff know and they'll get to know you because it's a nice small campus. Clara, did you have something you wanted to say about food?
I was just gonna touch on like food allergies or intolerances. Chartwell's is great. They always work, like they make an effort to make sure everyone's needs are met. And like I experienced some issues throughout the year with allergies, and they were always very helpful. And I always felt like I had something to eat. I always liked what I was eating. Yeah, it's good.
Okay. Study abroad opportunities is our next question. Has anyone in this group done a study abroad or is planning to? I see Daniel's hand.
Yeah, and King's offers two different study abroad opportunities. I did the contemporary study abroad opportunity, which was held in May, which takes 4 weeks in Berlin, Germany, and it's a summer class where you have a 2-hour seminar, and then you have an excursion where you go out to somewhere else in the city, explore the city to your heart's content. There are some assignments related to that, but they're usually due after you get back from Berlin. But it was an amazing experience. The profs were great, and also you get 6 credits, not only just for Berlin, but also for the early modern studies opportunity, which goes to Florence, Italy, and is mainly an art history course for early modern studies. And you get to go around the various museums in Florence, take in everything, and then take in all the images. And you also have some assignments for that. I'm not entirely sure how that works. As you know, they have yet to really put that back in place, as that has been held previously, but not post-pandemic. And I know there's a multitude of other opportunities at Dalhousie that I feel like someone else can touch on.
Yeah, Nora.
Yeah, I've recently been looking at exchange study abroad opportunities at Dalhousie. They have an extensive list, which you can find the Dal Study Abroad website, in Europe, Asia, South America, basically anywhere you want to go. And then there are also a few opportunities like offer that Dal's partners with other universities. So next year I'm actually going to Bolivia to do an international development study abroad opportunity, which is run by Trent, but Dal partnered with Trent, and that's allowing me to go with that. So through a King student, I'm a Dal student, and through that I have access to Trent. So it's really awesome how the like networking works between different universities and all the places you can go.
Yeah. That's awesome. I'm really excited for you. I want to hear more about the Bolivia trip. But I just to kind of sum up study abroad, there are so many options. There are the 2 field courses that Daniel mentioned that are specific to King's, that are in Berlin and Florence, but also through Dal, there's over 90 different kinds of study abroad opportunities. So if you're someone who's thinking about how you might want to integrate a study abroad or an international experience into your degree, I'd strongly recommend visiting the International Student Center. The International Student Center is really cool because it supports international students who are planning to come to Canada. So if you have questions about things like study permits, that kind of thing, the International Center will help you. But they're also great for supporting students that want to have an abroad experience as part of their degree. The most common time in a degree to do an abroad or an exchange program would be either in the summer between 2nd and 3rd year, or the summer between 3rd and 4th year, or at some point during your 3rd year. That's a really common time. So if you're thinking about this, I'd really recommend maybe sometime early in the 2nd year of your studies, popping over to the International Center chatting with an advisor there, talking about what kinds of things you're interested in, and then they can help you figure out what opportunities are available that match with your interests. Okay, we've got a question here that says, what kinds of events does King's host through the year? And how, how does it work if you want to do a semester abroad? So I think we've kind of touched a little bit about semesters abroad and study abroad, but can we speak a little to what types of events happen on campus? Yeah, Sadie, go ahead.
I will first give another plug for Classics in the Quad, the lovely year opening event by the King's Theatrical Society. I directed Aristophanes' The Birds this year for Classics in the Quad, and it was so much fun. And again, it's a great opportunity for first-year students especially to get to know each other and get involved in the community. So that's one thing that happens in October, and it's a great time to gather as a university. Another important one for first years near the beginning of the year is matriculation. Which is something kind of unique we do at King's. It's sort of in the old Oxford, Cambridge college tradition. And it's sort of like the opposite of a graduation ceremony. So all of the incoming students gather to be welcomed into the university. You recite an oath in Latin. You still are admitted if you butcher the Latin. And then everyone signs their name in a big book called the Matricula. Well, there's one on display in our library. And so that's a really cool way to be welcomed into the university. There's also something called formal meal that happens a few times term, usually once or twice a term, and that is a special dinner in Prince Hall where everybody puts on academic gowns like you're in Harry Potter or something, and you have a nice dinner with candles and flowers and the president or a special guest giving a speech. So that's really lovely. In terms of sort of more casual student events, there's something called the Dante Party, which I did not personally experience being residents during the height of COVID, but that is usually sometime around Halloween or sometime during the medieval section 2 of the foundation year program. And that is when one of the residences is decorated like Inferno, Purgatorio, and Paradiso, as in Dante's Divine Comedy. People dress up as like the deadly sins or other characters, and I have heard it's a super, super fun time. Also, the April Fool's Day water balloon fight has been reinstituted recently, I am told. So the point is there's lots of cool events, lots of fun student culture going on throughout the year.
Yeah, Daniel, do you have any favorite campus events you want to add?
Yeah, not only I can contribute to classics, I did it in my first year for Antigone, and I know Sadie was also in that as well. And the Dante Party, which is also, in fact, held in the King's residence. In fact, I'm actually living in Middle Bay, which is actually where the Dante Party was held, where they basically convert the entire building into a certain level of hell, because at that point in time, that is your fourth paper that you will be finishing in FIP at around October, November. It's fitting that they do it as the Dante Party, but there's also a lot of smaller campus events. In fact, every residence building and every floor in Alex Hall has a Don or Junior Don who helps with programming, student support, and builds various guidelines and helps reinforce the guidelines along with patrol, who are also there for help support it for peer support. But also each of the various societies come in. Like I know, for instance, like, Claire can add some thoughts about the ward room, but the ward room is a really great place for students to not only host events of their own. I am actually a regular trivia host, and also, for instance, karaoke takes place in the ward room. There are concerts in the ward room, and even in the foundation year program, there are many different ways that you can interact with your peers, including Read Now events where you get to read your FIP books with your peers and your FIP tutors and profs. But there's also Write Now, which is the exact same thing, but you get to read and write in a community of people. So like, although there are big events that are well known around campus, including the water balloon fight, which also takes place not really on April Fool's Day anymore, but it's more or less like in the afternoon where people just bring out water balloons and we just have fun. But also like smaller, more niche events that take place throughout the year and with the various extracurriculars on campus.
And I'll just mention a couple more that I think are really worth highlighting. So there's a bunch of events if you're the type of person that wants to get outside and in nature. The chapel helps to plan a bunch of those. And there's also an annual President's Hike to a wildlife preservation area, which is really lovely. There's an annual skating party every winter, which is really fun. If there's a really beautiful public skating rink in downtown Halifax called the Oval. So we take a big group of students there. And one that I think is really cool, but doesn't get as much attention as it deserves, is that there's this really neat program called Lunches in the Lodge, where our university president will invite different alumni, different graduates of King's with all sorts of interesting kinds of careers to come to campus. And then if you're a student who's interested in that career pathway or interested in that person, you can sign up to have lunch with them and get to know what they do and how they got to the career that they have. So those are really neat events that happen throughout the year. Okay, we've got a question here about pre-law and what would be the best program if you're thinking about getting into law school. And I think this person specifically has their sights set on Dalhousie's Law School, but there's great law schools all around the world that King's graduates go to. Are any of you on this kind of in our panel today kind of thinking maybe about law? Okay, so Nora's on the fence about law. Do you want to kind of speak to this a little bit?
Yeah, I've looked into it a little bit. From what I've heard, like discussing with lawyers, with students who are hoping to go into law school, from students who are in law school, is that there's not necessarily a specific program that best suits you to go into law. What law schools want to see in your application, in your interviews, is that you have critical thinking and that you've done something, that you've learned how to write, you've learned how to think, you've read interesting texts, and you've engaged with material, and you've like overall succeeded. If you're interested in something other than law in your undergrad, you can do, any program and still be considered for law. If you're like super set on law and you want to get as much information as you can about law before applying to law school, Dal does offer a law, justice, and society program at the undergraduate level, which King students have access to. You can do FIP and then go on to major in law, justice, and society. It's a really popular program for law students, and being at Dal, they would definitely recognize it as a great precursor to law school as well.
Yeah, I totally agree with all of that advice, Nora. If you're someone who's passionate about law, there's really no wrong type of degree to take. Pick something you're passionate about. Law schools do want to see your strong GPA, and you will get better grades in classes that you are actually interested in and actually enjoying. But law, justice, and society would be a really cool one to consider, or even take some electives in. I'm gonna fly through one of these. There's a question here that says, do we have events with Dal? The answer is yeah, you can do any events on the Dalhousie campus as well as the ones on the King's campus. We have a really interesting question here about making friends. Does it feel hard to make friends because of how small the campus is? So I'd love to throw this one to any of our panelists if you want to speak to. Yeah, I saw both Sadie and Jenna's hands go up. Sadie, why don't you take a little bit first, and then we'll see if Jenna wants to add on to that.
I think the small community at King's is an advantage to making friends. I had possibly the weirdest experience of that possible when I was one of about 40 students who did their 14-day COVID quarantine on campus and were allowed outside for 2 hours every day. And some of those people I met during quarantine are still my best friends and my roommates right now. So on a more general level, I would say the fact that you're all going through this program together and living in close proximity to each other, and are most likely like-minded people who enjoy reading and thinking about big questions and nerding out together, I think that all sets you up very nicely to make friends. And there are obviously various niches within King's, like sports, like various societies, like different programs at Dal as well, that will sort of help you gravitate toward a certain group of friends. But I think the small community at King's makes it very easy to make friends.
Thanks, Sadie. Jenna, do you want to add anything to that? I saw your hand go up too with the making friends question.
Yeah, sure. So with Kings being so small, even though on first day on move-in you see everybody, it feels very daunting. By the end, you will know everybody inevitably. Because like Sadie was saying, you're all together all the time. You all live on a very close-knit quad. You all are in the dining hall at the exact same time. You all are in the exact same classes. So you really do get to know everybody. And often I think what I've just seen in general in my own experiences of my friends, from what I know from years older than us and like that are or the year that's currently in FIP, is you also go through different phases with different friends just because of how the year goes, because you're just with everybody all the time. So you really have the opportunity to build really deep bonds with so many people just because you're around so many people. And so you actually end up building really, really deep connections with a lot of the people in your FIP year, just because you have the opportunity to spend so much time with them. I've had close friends before. I've never had friends that I felt disconnected to and have felt as close with as the friends that I made in FIP, just because that's really your only option. And everybody is super friendly. Everybody wants to be your friend. Everybody at King's is honestly an incredible person and somebody that I want to be friends with. And I often say that, you know, if you're a person that like I went through like FIP with, even if we weren't super close then, consider you one of my people, just because I genuinely feel like I could carry like a very long conversation with pretty much anybody I did FIP with, not necessarily based on dissecting a philosophical text, but just because you have so many shared experiences and you just get to know really amazing people in really deep ways. And like truly some of the most well-rounded, incredible people I've ever met in my life, I've met through FIP.
Really lovely. We're getting short on time, so I'm going to fly through a few questions that are just remaining in the chat, and then we have a few little bits of wrap-up information to share. There's one person who asked a question if you would feel disadvantaged if you were doing foundation program but living off campus. So we do have students that live off campus, even in first year. We usually use the word day student to describe those students. They're students that commute in for the day, but they don't sleep at the campus at night. And I was a day student. I'm a kid from Halifax. The home I grew up in was a 20-minute walk from campus. It didn't make sense for me to live in residence, so I stayed at home with my family in first year. I did not feel disadvantaged, but I do have a piece of advice if this relates to you. If you're going to be a day student, get involved in a club or a group of some kind as early as possible. It will absolutely help you feel connected to the community on campus. It'll help you make friends. A great one you might want to look into is the King's Day Students Society. So it's a whole group of awesome people on campus that are all day students and plan really fun events and programs. But getting involved, even if you're an off-campus student, is a really, really great way to be helpful. There's also a question here about what would be the ideal candidate for the journalism program. I've just spent a lot of time hanging out with the director of our journalism school. We were traveling and doing events. And I feel pretty confident that if you asked the director of our journalism school what type of candidate is ideal, he would say almost anyone who wants to be a journalist would be the ideal candidate. The criteria I think we're looking for is, are you curious? Are you willing to learn? Do you care about the truth? Like, journalists should be people that care about the truth. And are you willing to put in some hard work? I think that would make you an ideal candidate for the program. Jenna, you're in the program. I'm like, there's a lot of different kinds of students that are in the J school, so I don't want to kind of paint them all into like one type of person. We also have a question here that says, does King's have more of a student culture than other schools? It's a tricky one to answer. It's hard for us to know because we're all King students, so it's hard to compare to other institutions. I don't know. Does anyone want to kind of speak to this? Do we feel like there's a lot of student culture on our campus? Yeah, Jenna, I saw your hand go up.
I know I've very biased because my only experience in a university, but from talking to other friends and just from what I know, I would say a resounding yes. I think that's one of the most attractive things about King's is our student culture. It's truly like nothing else. I remember when I was touring King's, and the tour guide, who was actually Ashley, who is, I believe, is still on this call, was describing like that there's a magic about King's campus that people often talk about. And I was like, okay, sure. And then I came to King's, I did the foundation year program, and I would say that's a really accurate way of describing it. There's just something really magical about being here on this awesome campus and being with all these people, and like everybody just kind of comes in as friends almost. Like you kind of honestly skip the awkward phase in some instances. Like people just kind of come in and everybody's really open and everybody's really interested in having a really good time and learning a lot. And because of how dedicated everybody is, it's hard to put your finger on it, but it's just like nothing else.
Sarah, I see your hand going up. Something you want to add to that?
It's also like we're really lucky as King students, like considering our relationship with Dalhousie, you're in kind of like a best of both worlds situation, because like going to King's, you're in on a smaller campus, tight-knit community, only 1,000 students. You walk across the quad and you'll run into 10 people that you know and love. And then you walk literally 2 minutes away and you're at Dal, and you get to experience I guess the more like, for lack of a better word, like typical mid-sized university experience, where you're walking through a large campus with like people that you've never seen before, or like you might only run into a few people that with lots of buildings, lots of different faculties, whatnot. So like I think King's student culture is really unique in that aspect, that you have like not only do you have the liberal arts like college experience, you also have the like mid-sized university experience, which is like really special, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you both so much. I've got one last question in the chat. I'm going to answer it real quick, which is just when we get a spot in residence, do we find out who our roommate is as well? And our residence building's co-ed. The vast majority of residence spaces on campus are co-ed. There are some spaces designated in some of our buildings that are only for male students or only for female students, and you can specify what kinds of spaces you're most interested in the residence application. There is a guaranteed bed for you when you find out you have a space in residence, but our roommate assignments go out later. And I'm just going to give you all the advice right now. When you fill out the residence application, be as detailed as possible with the information that you provide. Be honest about who you are. Be honest about if you're a morning person, a night person, if you play your music loud, if you are a little bit messy, be honest. And keep in mind that there's no like algorithm matching people up with roommates. There's real human beings, Jacob and Gavin, who are both wonderful people, reading over the applications and matching people up. So it's really worth it to just be honest and specific. Okay, I'm going to just share a last couple slides just to wrap us up. And I'm going to let Ashley, continue to type out answers to any other questions that pop into our chat. I really want to thank everyone for asking such incredible questions. And I also want to thank our wonderful panelists for taking time to answer all of those questions. I really appreciate all of your time today. We've had tons and tons of questions. I hope we've gotten to as many of them as possible. I do want to highlight that we have a couple other upcoming events that are available to you if you're hungry to learn more, if you want to dig in a little bit more and learn more about King's. So if you are someone who is able to visit us in Halifax, or maybe it's feasible for you to come to campus, first of all, you can take a campus tour anytime. Taking a campus tour on our campus is a great way to get to know what the community is like and see the campus up close. And if you want to take a campus tour on a really special day and really get to explore the university in depth, I'll just highlight that February 24th is our winter open house on campus. So that's a great day to visit the campus. We also have 2 other upcoming online events that are webinars. One of them is our February 1st webinar that's all about scholarships, and the other one is the February 8th one that's all about financial aid. And for both of those webinars, the scholarship and the financial aid webinar, we'll have experts on campus that really know our scholarship and financial aid processes backwards, forwards, and upside down. So they'll be able to answer every question that you have about those processes. After this webinar wraps up tomorrow, which is Monday, I'll be sending out an email to everyone who signed up for this virtual event with a recording of this session, but I'll also send you links to where you can sign up for any of those upcoming events. So if you're curious about signing up, you just check your inbox tomorrow. The details should be there. So if you're thinking about what next steps you can take, obviously you can register for an upcoming event. If you haven't already applied to King's and you want to, apply online. If you have questions about the application process, reach out to us at admissions@ukings.ca. You can follow us on any of our social channels. You can see all of those on the slide. Social media is a really great way to see what's going on campus right now and kind of get to know what we're all about. And as I said before, keep an eye on your inbox. I'm going to send you a post-event email tomorrow with other types of information you can explore, a link to a video of this webinar, and other useful things. So I think that takes us to the end of our event. I'm just going to check that I'm not missing anything critical in the chat. And I really want to thank each and every one of you for joining us today, especially our panelists. Again, a big shout out to all of you for taking some time on the weekend to be here. This doesn't have to be the end of the conversation. Like I said, you can reach us at admissions@ukings.ca if you want to talk more, or reach out with other questions that you have. So thank you so much for joining us for this open house, and have a totally fantastic day. And hopefully we'll see you in the future at King's. Take care, everyone.